I sat across from Emily, my hands clenched so tight my knuckles were white, my phone screen glowing between us. The video played in an endless loop, showing her walking into a hotel, her hand resting lightly on the arm of a man I had never seen before. The timestamp was from 3 nights ago. The location? The Westbridge Hotel, across town. She wasn't supposed to be there. She had told me she was at dinner with friends. And yet, here she was, clear as day, cheating. My stomach churned, my pulse hammering as I waited for her to say something, to deny it, to make an excuse. But she didn't. Emily leaned back in her chair, completely calm, completely unfazed, and then she smiled. A slow, knowing smile that made my skin crawl. "Jake," she said softly, shaking her head like I was some foolish child. "You really think I'd be that sloppy?" My breath stalled. "What the hell does that mean?" She sighed, setting down her glass of wine, wiping the condensation off with one manicured finger before meeting my gaze. "If you're going to accuse me of something, you should at least be sure of your own alibi first." My stomach twisted. "What are you talking about?" She reached for her phone, swiped a few times, then turned the screen toward me. This. My breath left my lungs. It was me, walking into the same hotel, with another woman, a woman I had never seen before. The timestamp? The exact same time as Emily's video. My chest tightened, my brain scrambling, trying to process what I was looking at. "This is fake," I said immediately. Emily arched an eyebrow, amused. "Is it?" I looked closer. It wasn't just footage. It was security camera footage. The same angle, the same lighting, the same timestamp as hers. Except this time, it was me walking through those doors, my hand resting on the small of another woman's back, my face clear as day. I swallowed hard. "This isn't possible." Emily shrugged. "Funny, that's what I thought when I saw your little video." I stared at her, my pulse pounding in my ears. This was insane. This was impossible. I knew where I had been that night. At home, alone, watching some mindless TV show, drinking a beer, waiting for Emily to come home. I had never stepped foot in that hotel. I had never met that woman. But now? Now, there was proof. I exhaled sharply, my mind racing. "What the hell is this, Emily?" Her smile widened slightly, her eyes gleaming with something cold. "It's an alibi," she said simply. "A perfect one." I shook my head, trying to push through the fog of confusion, trying to make sense of what I was seeing. "You're framing me?" I whispered. Emily tilted her head. "Framing you?" She laughed softly. "Jake, I don't need to frame you. I just need enough doubt." My chest felt like it was caving in. Doubt for what? She leaned forward, resting her chin on her hand. "See, here's the thing, babe. You wanted to catch me, didn't you? You wanted proof, something undeniable, something you could hold over me. But the problem with proof?" Her smile sharpened. "It works both ways." My stomach dropped. She had planned this. I forced myself to stay calm. "I know I wasn't there," I said, my voice low, measured. "I know this video of me is fake." Emily exhaled dramatically, tapping her nails against her phone. "Maybe it is. Maybe it isn't. Doesn't really matter, does it?" She leaned back, watching me, letting the weight of her words settle in. "Because if you tell anyone about my little trip to the hotel, I'll show them yours. And let's be honest, Jake." Her voice softened, almost affectionate. "Who do you think they'll believe?" The air left my lungs. Because I already knew the answer. I swallowed hard, my hands shaking under the table. "Why?" The word barely came out. Emily sighed, her gaze flickering with something almost pitying. "Because I don't like being backed into a corner, babe." She reached for her wine again, taking a slow sip, completely at ease while my world crumbled. "And I always have a way out." I sat there, frozen, the weight of what just happened crashing over me in waves. She had me. No matter how real my video was, no matter how much I knew the truth, she had created doubt. If I exposed her, she'd expose me. And people? They wouldn't question it. They'd just assume we were both guilty. She had turned my evidence into a stalemate. Emily set down her glass and stood, Smoothing out her dress like this was just another casual conversation. Another normal night. You wanted the truth, Jake. Well, there it is. She gave me one last, slow smile. Now what are you going to do? I didn't answer. Because for the first time in my life, I had no idea. I sat in the silence long after Emily walked away, my mind spinning, my pulse hammering in my ears. She had planned this. That was the only thing I knew for sure. She had set me up, created a lie so perfect, so bulletproof, that even though I knew the truth, I couldn't prove it. If I tried to expose her, she'd throw my fake alibi in my face, and then what? It would be my word against hers. And when it came down to it, who would people believe? The devoted wife with a seemingly solid case, or the husband who suddenly looked just as guilty? My chest tightened, my fingers twitching against the table, rage creeping up my spine. I wasn't just stuck, I was trapped, and Emily knew it. I exhaled sharply, standing abruptly, shoving my chair back so hard it scraped against the floor. I needed answers. I needed to know how she did this, who helped her, because there was no way she pulled this off alone. Deep fake? A bribe? A staged setup with a guy who looked like me? My mind raced through possibilities, each one worse than the last. If she had gone this far to protect herself, if she had built an entire alibi just in case she got caught, what else had she done that I didn't know about? And how long had she been planning this? I grabbed my phone, scrolling through my contacts until I found the one name I hadn't thought about in years. Paul Mendez. An old friend, a tech guy, the kind of person who could manipulate video footage if the price was right. If anyone could tell me if this was fake, it was him. My hands were shaking as I hit call. It rang twice before he picked up. Jake? His voice was groggy, confused. Haven't heard from you in forever, man. What's up? I swallowed hard. I need your help. An hour later, I sat in Paul's cluttered apartment, my laptop open in front of him, the fake footage of me looping on the screen. He leaned in, frowning, rewinding, analyzing. Where did you get this? He muttered. It's from a hotel security camera, I said tightly. But it never happened. Paul didn't respond right away, his fingers tapping against the keyboard, his eyes narrowing as he played the video frame by frame. The quality's too clean, he muttered. Security footage is usually grainier than this, even at high-end places. The way the shadows move, it's too perfect, almost too controlled. My stomach twisted. Meaning? Paul exhaled, sitting back, rubbing his jaw. Meaning this isn't a natural recording. It was edited. I'd bet money on it. My heart pounded. Can you prove it? Paul hesitated. Maybe. If I can get the original hotel security feed, I can compare timestamps, analyze the metadata. But that's not exactly easy. I'd need access to their system. I clenched my jaw. That wasn't going to happen. Emily had chosen the perfect place. A high-end hotel with security protocols that wouldn't be easy to crack. I couldn't just walk in and ask for the footage. I needed another way. I leaned forward, my voice low. What about the woman in the video? Can you ID her? Paul smirked. Now that I can do. He worked fast, isolating her face, running it through databases, social media, anything that could pull a match. Minutes ticked by, my pulse pounding with every second, waiting, hoping. Then, a hit. Paul's eyebrows lifted. Well, damn. He turned the screen toward me. Meet Vanessa Hale. I stared at the profile that popped up. A local actress. Small-time gigs. Nothing major. My breath caught. She's a fake alibi. Paul nodded. Seems that way. You're looking at a paid performance, my friend. I sat back, my mind racing, the pieces finally coming together. Emily had staged the whole thing. Found a woman, paid her off, set up the perfect scene, knowing that if I ever came after her, she'd have this ready to shut me down. She had turned my proof against me before I even had the chance to use it. But now? Now I had her proof. I exhaled slowly, gripping the edge of the table. Can you pull up her recent transactions? See if Emily paid her? Paul hesitated. That's pushing into illegal territory, man. I stared at him. Paul, she's ruining my life. He sighed, shaking his head, but started typing. You owe me for this. Get me what I need, and I'll owe you anything. It took another 20 minutes, but when Paul finally sat back, his smirk was sharp. Bingo! I leaned forward, heart hammering. A payment. 5 grand. From Emily's account. Straight to Vanessa Hale. I exhaled, my hands tightening into fists. I got her. Paul whistled. Damn, man. What's the plan now? I didn't hesitate. I'm going to make her confess. I drove home with my hands gripping the wheel so tight my knuckles turned white, my mind racing with every possible way this could go. Emily thought she had one. She thought she had backed me into a corner, that she had covered her tracks so perfectly that I would have no choice but to drop it. But she underestimated me. She didn't think I'd push further. She didn't think I'd find Vanessa Hale. And now? I had her dead to rights. The moment Paul showed me the payment, the undeniable proof that Emily had hired an actress to fake my alibi, everything changed. She wasn't just covering her tracks. She had premeditated this. She had built an entire escape plan, anticipating that one day I'd catch her, and she had prepared a perfect defense. But now? Now I had proof that her defense was a lie. I pulled into the driveway, exhaling sharply, forcing my breathing to slow. Emily's car was already there, parked like it had been every night for years, like nothing was wrong, like we weren't about to have the most important conversation of our lives. She had no idea what was coming. I got out, pocketed my phone, walked inside. The house smelled like fresh coffee, soft vanilla candles burning in the kitchen, everything carefully curated to feel like home. A home that was built on deception. Emily sat at the dining table, flipping through her laptop, completely at ease, completely unaware. She glanced up as I entered, her lips curving into a soft smile. Hey babe, long day? My stomach twisted at how effortlessly she played her role, like she hadn't just tried to ruin me. I forced a casual nod, moving to the fridge, grabbing a water bottle to buy myself a few seconds. Yeah, I said evenly. Had some things to take care of. She hummed in response, going back to her screen. I watched her for a second longer than I should have. The way she sipped her coffee, the way she tucked her hair behind her ear. She had no idea her world was about to collapse. I took a slow breath. Hey, I was thinking, I started, keeping my tone light, natural. We should go out tonight. Maybe grab dinner somewhere nice. She blinked, caught off guard for a split second before recovering. Really? Her voice was carefully measured, curious but guarded. What's the occasion? I smiled. Just felt like we needed it. She studied me for a beat, searching, trying to see if there was anything lurking beneath the surface. I kept my face smooth, unreadable. She wasn't the only one who could play this game. Finally, she nodded. All right, that sounds nice. We got ready in silence, the tension between us shifting, changing, but Emily didn't seem to notice. She still thought she was in control, that I had accepted my place, that I had accepted defeat. She had no idea she was walking into her own trap. The restaurant was upscale, dimly lit, intimate, perfect for a conversation like this. I ordered a bottle of wine, let the small talk flow naturally, let her ease into the night, let her think everything was normal. And then, when the moment was just right, when she was relaxed, unsuspecting, I pulled out my phone, turned it toward her, and hit play. Vanessa Hale's face filled the screen. Emily's smile froze. Her fingers tightened around her wine glass as the recording played. Yeah, I was paid to do it. Some lady named Emily transferred me 5 grand to meet a guy at the hotel and make sure the camera saw us. I don't know the guy. Never met him. It was just a job. Emily didn't blink. The video ended. The silence stretched between us, suffocating, thick, absolute. I leaned forward, my voice low, measured. Want to try that alibi excuse again? Her grip on the glass was so tight I thought it might shatter. But she didn't speak. Not yet. I let the silence stretch, let it sink in, let her brain scramble for an escape. You paid her, I continued. You planned this. You faked an alibi for yourself by fabricating one for me first. I tilted my head. But you made a mistake. Her lips parted slightly, but no words came out. I exhaled, shaking my head. You should have paid her more. A flicker of something flashed in her eyes. Fear? No, not yet, but close. I leaned back, letting her sit with it, watching as she processed that she wasn't the smartest person in the room anymore. "So," I said finally, voice quiet but sharp, "what happens now, Emily?" She swallowed hard, but she didn't deny it. She couldn't. I had her. For the first time since this started, I was in control. Emily didn't speak, didn't move, just sat there, her fingers still curled around the wine glass, her body tense, her eyes locked onto mine like she was calculating, assessing, trying to find a way out of the corner I had just shoved her into. But there wasn't one. I had her, dead to rights. The recording was still open on my phone, the silence stretching between us, thick, suffocating. I let her sit with it, let her feel the weight of her own deception collapsing around her. "Nothing to say?" I asked quietly, swirling my glass of whiskey, watching her carefully. "Because a minute ago, you were pretty damn confident." She inhaled sharply, straightening, slowly setting her glass down, her face smoothing into something eerily unreadable. "You don't understand," she murmured. "Then explain," I said. "Explain why you paid an actress to create a fake alibi. Explain why you staged evidence before I ever caught you." Her jaw tightened, her eyes flashing with something unreadable. "I did what I had to do." I let out a sharp laugh, shaking my head. "That's not an answer, Emily." Her lips pressed together, her breath coming in slow, measured exhales like she was forcing herself to stay calm. "You don't get it, Jake. You never did." I exhaled sharply, setting my drink down with a soft clink. "Then make me understand." She hesitated, and then she smiled. A slow, deliberate, dangerous smile that made my stomach tighten with something cold, something dark. "All right," she murmured. "You want the truth?" I didn't speak. Emily leaned forward, resting her elbows on the table, her voice dropping lower. "I've been planning this for a long time." My pulse stalled. She watched me, waiting for a reaction, but I kept my face perfectly still. "I knew you'd catch me eventually," she continued, her voice smooth, controlled. "I knew you'd go digging. And when you did..." She tilted her head. "I needed to be ready." I swallowed hard, my throat suddenly dry. "So the fake alibi?" She nodded. "A contingency plan. A way to make sure that if you ever tried to take me down, you'd go down with me." Something hot and violent crawled up my spine, my jaw tightening so hard it hurt. "You were never planning on stopping, were you?" She shrugged, completely unaffected. "Why would I?" I exhaled slowly, gripping the edge of the table, my mind spinning, trying to wrap around the magnitude of what she had just admitted. She was never sorry. She was never caught off guard. This wasn't a mistake. This was a strategy. My fingers twitched against the table. "You played me," I murmured, more to myself than to her. She smiled again. "You let me." I let out a slow, sharp breath, shaking my head. "Not anymore." Her eyebrows lifted slightly. "What do you mean?" I leaned back, exhaling, watching her, letting a slow smirk curl at the edges of my mouth. "You thought you were the only one playing a game." For the first time, a flicker of uncertainty crossed her face. I pulled my phone out again, tapping a few times before sliding it across the table. "Press play." She hesitated, then reached for it, her hands careful, controlled. But the second she heard the first few words, her face drained of color. "I've been planning this for a long time." Her own voice. Recorded. Captured. Undeniable. I watched her carefully, watched the way her body stiffened, watched the way her fingers trembled slightly before she curled them into fists, trying to hide the reaction. "What did you do?" she whispered, her voice suddenly tight. I shrugged. The second I sat down, I hit record. "Figured you'd say something interesting." Her eyes flicked up to mine, sharp and calculating. But now? Now, she was the one trapped. "Guess what, Emily?" I murmured, my voice low, even. "Now I have the perfect alibi." She didn't breathe, didn't blink, didn't move. Because she knew. She had lost. I leaned in slightly, my voice barely above a whisper. "I can take this to the police, to your family, to your job. Hell, I can upload it right now and watch your entire world collapse in real time." I tilted my head. "How does it feel?" knowing you finally lost? She exhaled sharply, her fingers twitching again, her mind working, scrambling. But there was no way out. I stood slowly, pulling my phone back, slipping it into my pocket, my heart steady, my pulse even. You said you always have a way out, I murmured. But not this time. I turned, walked away, and this time, she didn't follow. I walked out of the restaurant and into the night, the cool air hitting my skin, but I barely felt it. My mind was sharp, my body steady, my heartbeat slow and controlled. I had one. Emily thought she was untouchable, that she had planned for every outcome, but she had underestimated me. She never thought I'd turn the game back on her, never thought that I would be smart enough to set my own trap. And now, she had no moves left. I pulled out my phone, staring at the recording, her words playing back in my mind. I've been planning this for a long time. That was all I needed. The confession that proved she wasn't just covering an affair. She was orchestrating an entire setup, fabricating evidence, manipulating reality. It was more than just infidelity. It was fraud. It was psychological warfare. And she was going to pay for it. Jason was waiting for me in my car, leaning against the passenger door, his expression unreadable. "How'd it go?" he asked, pushing off the car as I approached. I exhaled sharply, shaking my head. "Better than I expected." He narrowed his eyes. "That means she confessed, doesn't it?" I nodded, unlocking the car, sliding into the driver's seat. "Yeah, and I got it all on tape." Jason let out a low whistle, shutting the door behind him. "Damn. So what now? You gonna send it to her family? Post it online? Call the cops?" I stared ahead, my grip tightening on the wheel. There were so many ways to end this. So many ways to destroy her the way she tried to destroy me. I could send the recording to her parents, let them see who their daughter really was. I could leak it to her job, ensure she never worked in a high-trust position again. I could press charges, fraud, falsifying evidence, defamation. The legal system might be slow, but with proof like this, she wouldn't walk away clean. Jason shifted beside me. "You're thinking about it, aren't you?" I exhaled. "Yeah." "And," he pressed, "what's the move?" I hesitated, my jaw tight, my mind running through every scenario, every possibility. Then, finally, I made my decision. I wasn't going to destroy Emily. I was going to let her destroy herself. I pulled up my messages, opened our chat, and attached the recording. Then, with a slow breath, I typed one sentence. "If you ever come after me again, I send this to everyone you know." Then I hit send. Jason raised an eyebrow. "That's it?" I leaned back, letting out a slow, satisfied breath. "She's already ruined, Jason. She just doesn't know it yet." The phone buzzed almost immediately. "Emily." I didn't pick up. Jason smirked, shaking his head. "Damn, man. That's some stone-cold shit." I smiled slightly. She earned it. The drive home was quiet, the tension that had weighed on me for so long finally lifting. I was free. Emily could never use that fake alibi against me now. She could never twist the truth in her favor again. She had played the long game, but in the end, I played it better. I walked into my house, locking the door behind me, feeling something I hadn't felt in a long time. Peace. The game was over, and I had won. I woke up to my phone vibrating on the nightstand, the screen lighting up in the dark. "Emily." Again. I sighed, rolling onto my back, staring at the ceiling as I let it ring. She had been calling nonstop since last night. First, it was rapid, frantic, call after call, text after text. Then it slowed, the desperation turning to something else. I didn't respond. I didn't need to. I had already won. She knew that. But Emily wasn't the type to accept defeat easily. The phone buzzed again. Another text. "We need to talk." I scoffed, shaking my head. Talk? Now she wanted to talk? After she spent months lying, manipulating, setting me up? After she created a backup plan to ruin me in case I ever found out the truth? I sat up, running a hand through my hair. I should have blocked her, but a part of me wasn't ready yet. A part of me wanted to see what she would do next. Jason had been right when he said she wasn't going to let this go. Emily always had another move. And that's what bothered me. The recording was my insurance, but she wasn't stupid. She wasn't reckless. She was calculated. If she was still trying to reach me, it meant she wasn't done playing. That meant I needed to be ready. Another buzz. This time, a voicemail. I hesitated, then hit play. Her voice was softer than I expected. Almost controlled. Not frantic. Not scared. Jake, I know you don't want to talk to me. I get it. But you're making a mistake if you think this is over. You don't want war with me. Trust me. Just call me back. I clenched my jaw. There it was. The shift. She wasn't begging. She wasn't apologizing. She was warning me. I took a slow breath, stood, walked to the window. The street outside was quiet, still dark, the city just beginning to stir. My mind ran through every scenario, every possible move she could be making. I had proof of what she did. But what if she had proof of something else? I grabbed my phone, scrolling through my files, playing back her recorded confession. It was real, solid. But what if she had been recording me too? My stomach twisted at the thought. What had I said to her over the past few days? Had I made any threats? Had I said anything that could be twisted? Could she flip this back on me? I needed to know what she was planning. I exhaled, hit call. The phone barely rang before she answered. Jake, she breathed, like she'd been waiting for it. Say what you need to say, I said flatly. A pause. Then, delete it. I smirked. That's not happening. She exhaled sharply. Jake, listen to me. You think you won, but you don't understand. If you release that recording, I promise you, I will make sure it doesn't end the way you think it will. I narrowed my eyes. That a threat? Another pause. A warning. I clenched my jaw. You really don't get it, do you? My voice was calm, steady. I don't need to release it. You're already finished. You have no leverage anymore, Emily. Silence. Then, she laughed softly. God, you're so predictable. Something in my gut twisted. I knew you'd go looking, she continued, her voice smoother now, more confident. I knew you'd dig, find Vanessa, piece it together. And I knew you'd record me. That's why I let you. My blood ran cold. She sighed. Jake, I've been 10 steps ahead of you from the beginning. That little confession you recorded? It's not as solid as you think. I swallowed hard, my grip tightening around the phone. What are you talking about? She exhaled. You have proof that I faked an alibi. But what you don't have is motive. What's stopping me from saying I did it to protect myself? That you were dangerous? That I was scared of you? My stomach clenched. No. No way. She kept going. And you? You have my voice on tape, sure. But do you want to know what I have? She paused for dramatic effect. Every text, every argument, every voicemail you ever left me. The ones where you were angry. The ones where you sounded unhinged. My breath stalled. I have evidence that paints a different picture, Jake. One where I'm the victim. One where you look unstable. I clenched my teeth. She was bluffing. She had to be. But what if she wasn't? My silence must have given something away because she exhaled, her voice turning softer. You're not a bad guy, Jake. But you let your emotions control you. And if you push me, I will use that against you. I forced myself to breathe evenly. So what? We both just pretend none of this happened? She hummed. That's up to you. You have your proof. I have mine. You walk away, I walk away. No one gets ruined. I exhaled slowly, my mind racing. This wasn't a truce. This was a stalemate. And she knew it. Think about it, she murmured. Then the line went dead. I sat there, the phone still in my hand, my mind spinning, my pulse hammering. Emily had just made her last move. And now? I had to decide if I was going to make mine. I sat there, gripping my phone so tight my knuckles turned white, my mind racing in circles. She planned for this. She anticipated every move, every reaction, every way I might retaliate. She hadn't just played defense, she set a trap. The recording I had on her was enough to ruin her, but now she was claiming she had something on me too. And that changed everything. I could still expose her, still send the recording to her family, her job, the police, anyone who would listen. But if she wasn't bluffing, if she really had something that could twist the story, turn it against me, make me the villain, then I wasn't walking away from this unscathed. My fingers hovered over my phone. My heartbeat steady, but my thoughts a tangled mess. What if I just dropped it? Deleted the recording, let her keep whatever she had. Walked away without looking back? Would that be enough? Would she really stay quiet? Could I trust her not to come after me later? No. Emily wasn't the type to let things go. If I backed down, I'd always be looking over my shoulder, always waiting for the moment she decided she wanted something from me, always wondering if she'd finally decide to burn me before I could burn her. I let out a slow breath, rubbing a hand over my face. There was only one way to end this. I had to break the stalemate. I dialed a number I hadn't called in years. Detective Owens, a friend of my father's, an old-school cop who had helped me out of a few stupid situations in my early 20s. He answered on the third ring. Jake? His voice was rough, skeptical. Didn't expect to hear from you. What's going on? I swallowed, choosing my words carefully. I need advice. Legal advice. Owen sighed, already sounding exhausted. What kind of legal advice? I hesitated. The kind that involves someone framing me. That got his attention. Where are you? He asked. I glanced at the clock. Meet me at Harbor Coffee in an hour. I hung up before he could ask anything else. The next hour felt like a countdown. My nerves steady, but my thoughts relentless. This was it. If I went to Owens, if I handed over everything I had, there was no taking it back. Emily thought she had me pinned, thought I'd be too scared to make a move. She thought we'd just live in this endless deadlock, both holding knives to each other's throats. But what she didn't know, I wasn't afraid of the fallout. I arrived at the cafe early, grabbing a black coffee, sitting in a booth near the back where no one would overhear. Owens walked in 10 minutes later, his gaze sharp, taking in the scene before sliding into the seat across from me. All right, he muttered. Talk. I pulled out my phone, opened the recording, hit play. He listened without reacting, his expression unreadable, his fingers drumming lightly against the table. When it ended, he exhaled sharply. Jesus. I locked the screen, leaning forward. She's setting me up. She already faked an alibi for herself and made a fake one for me. If I release this, she's threatening to release something that makes me look dangerous. Owens studied me for a long moment, his gaze calculating. Does she have anything real? I clenched my jaw. I don't know, but if she does, it's twisted, fabricated. He nodded slowly. All right, here's the thing. You go public with this, she'll retaliate. That's a fact. And whether her evidence is real or fake, it doesn't matter. People love a messy scandal. They don't care about the truth. If she plays the victim card right, you could end up in a worse position than her. I exhaled sharply. So what do I do? Owens smirked slightly. You don't go public. You go private. I frowned. What does that mean? It means you stop thinking like a guy who wants revenge and start thinking like someone who wants to win, he said smoothly. You don't expose her to the world. You expose her to the right people. Quietly. Strategically. You make her life unlivable without ever stepping into the spotlight. Something in my chest tightened. Like what? Owens leaned forward. You have the recording. You have proof she faked evidence. That means she's committed fraud. You take this to her employer, to her board, to the people who can ruin her career, her reputation, her connections, without ever putting your own name in the dirt. You let them handle her. Let them rip her apart. She won't even see it coming. A slow, dark satisfaction settled in my gut. That was it. That was the move. Emily expected a fight. A public, messy war. She didn't expect to be dismantled from the inside. I leaned back, exhaling. And if she tries to go after me? Owens smirked. She won't have the power to anymore. I nodded slowly. Okay, let's do this. Owens finished his coffee, stood, and clapped a hand on my shoulder. Smart move, kid. As he walked away, I sat there, staring at my phone, my pulse finally steady. Emily thought this was a game, but I was about to show her what real destruction looked like. Owens worked fast. Within 24 hours, Emily's world started unraveling in ways she never saw coming. I stayed quiet, kept my hands clean, and let the right people do the work for me. Her employer was the first to react. Fraud, falsifying evidence, and potential legal liability. That wasn't something a high-profile firm could ignore. By noon, she was suspended pending an internal investigation. By the end of the day, her accounts were locked, her email disabled, and her career, the one she spent years building, was slipping through her fingers like sand. She called me 6 times. I didn't answer. She sent messages. I didn't read them. She wanted to negotiate, to find a way out, but there was no escape from this. Not anymore. The second domino fell that evening. Her reputation. People started talking. The same people she had always manipulated, always kept in her back pocket, started seeing her for what she really was. By the next morning, she was getting calls she couldn't ignore. Her parents, her friends, her professional contacts, the ones who could make or break her future. They all wanted to know the same thing. Is it true? Did you fake evidence? Did you lie? She couldn't explain her way out of this one. I watched it all unfold from a distance, methodical and controlled. I didn't need to drag her name through the mud. I just needed people to see her for who she was. And once they did, she had no power left. By the time she showed up at my apartment, I was already waiting. She didn't knock, just barged in, her face pale, her body tense, her perfect composure finally cracking. What did you do? Her voice was sharp, panicked. You think this makes you the winner? I stayed seated, my expression calm, watching her unravel. I think it makes me free. Her breath hitched, her eyes burning with something sharp, something desperate. You don't get to decide that, Jake. I tilted my head. I already did. She let out a shaky breath, pacing, running a hand through her hair, trying to grasp onto something that wasn't there anymore. You don't understand what you've done, she whispered. You ruined me. I leaned forward, resting my elbows on my knees. No, Emily, you did that all on your own. She flinched, her mask slipping further, her hands clenching at her sides. This isn't over, she muttered. I'll fix this. I smirked, shaking my head. No, you won't. Because no one believes you anymore. Her breath stuttered, her fingers twitching. She knew I was right. She had built her life on control, on being the smartest person in the room, on twisting situations until she came out clean. But now, she was exposed, and she had no one left to manipulate. She stared at me, her chest rising and falling sharply, her mind working, still searching for an out. But there wasn't one. The silence stretched, thick, suffocating, until finally, she broke. Her shoulders slumped, her breath shaky, her hands shaking as she swallowed hard. So that's it, she whispered. You just destroy me and walk away? I stood slowly, exhaling, my pulse steady. I'm not destroying you, Emily. I'm just letting people see who you really are. She stared at me for a long moment, something flickering in her eyes. Realization, acceptance, maybe even regret. But it didn't matter. Not anymore. She turned without another word and walked out the door. And I didn't follow.